Hey everybody, welcome back to What Would Charlie Shoot? We are on episode number 12 today. And I'm going to be talking about something really special today on how life shapes our path as photographers. I'll be answering your questions as usual, and I'll be telling you about a couple things coming up that I want to get you involved with and see if we can go from there. So first things first, with the story today as usual, I want to go ahead and start out with that because that's always a main point of these podcasts, and I'll get you rolling on there as well. So today's topic is how life shapes our path as photographers. We want to discover why we start, and we want to discover how to experience the journey. So over the years, I've spoken with many of my photography students about the essential question. The question that drives us all to pick up a camera is universal. It does not matter what country we are from, or if we are male or female, or what race, or what we believe in. We pick up a camera to capture who or what we love. And the question beyond who or what we love about photography that is more important to understand is the why we photograph. Why did you begin? Why did you want to take photographs? What drives you to do what you do? Now here's a couple tips on how to identify the why. To accurately explain the methods for discovering the why to you, let me go ahead and give you a couple perspectives. I started out photography because I had a grandmother that gave me a camera at age 10. At first, I did not dive into photography head over heels. I started on a family vacation to Disney World. What was my first reason why I photographed? It was spending time with my family and remembering the moments that we shared. I would end up shooting and photographing alongside my grandma, and eventually I got into photographing for money. There was a distinctly different feeling inside of me that felt more hollow when I was simply photographing for money. It did not feel warm, excited, passionate, or inspired by many things over the years that I photographed for money. Yet these things that I photographed commercially went into the why I needed to make a living category instead of the actual answer of why I photograph. And so you want to discover the why with personal projects. I remember distinctly visiting Chicago for the first time on a trip once. I was on a boat in the middle of the Chicago River, and we had a small Sony point-and-shoot camera in my pocket. I saw a man with a black Nikon camera with a huge lens that kept standing up to photograph everything that he saw. I felt inspired by simply viewing the size of the camera and the lens, and I thought, wow, I need to get myself a camera and lens like that to inspire my photography. Yet much later down the road, when I achieved my goal of purchasing a black Nikon camera with a huge lens, it left me feeling hollow again. I made photographs, sure, yet it did not light me up or resonate in the sense that I was doing something that I really led to anything in that case. I was simply pushing the button for the sake of pushing the button. And my first collection of images that I made, I attempted a little book out of a personal project with this when I went back to what I did subconsciously. I made a book of images of my family and the things that we experienced at about age 25. Was this the New York Times bestseller that I dreamed of? Nope. Did anyone else care? Nope. 3 copies of the book are in existence, and in fact, no one else in this world has a copy of the book except for my parents, my brother, and myself. Yet I felt more alive in capturing these images than I thought by working for others. I went on to do several of the projects I'm going to tell you about today as well, to give you some inspiration, to give you some ideas, and things of that sort. Number 1 was called Resonance. In my early 30s, I was laid off from a corporate position where I worked in computers, and I was presented with the challenge of what to do next. My ex-wife suggested I could continue searching for another corporate job, or I could take time to return to college and finish a degree program. I chose the degree program as I saw the value in education as a way to improve my situation outside of a soul-sucking 9-to-5 job. I enrolled at the University of Michigan's Art and Design School, and I found my inspiration return. I was making many things that I enjoyed and I loved simply for the sake of doing them, and I excelled in all of my classes. In my senior year of college, I had a good friend that passed away from bulimia. No one that was a friend of my family or of hers knew how much she struggled. She would starve herself to the point where her organs eventually shut down and she passed away in her sleep. When she passed, it hit me really hard. I felt this fire inside of me that I had to speak out about this. And I've always spoken out about what I think over the years in my art. This timing coincided with my senior thesis at the University of Michigan, So I produced a book called Resonance on Body Image. Many years later now, I understand that this project was about me trying to understand exactly what my friend went through and what she did before she passed. I photographed over 100 people, ages 18 plus, totally nude, and we collaborated with the written statements that they submitted to this exactly of what they wanted to say about body image alongside my photography. It gave people a voice and a platform to speak out about how they dealt with body image and the pressures of society that eat away at individuals. And when it came time for me to host my senior thesis show, I thought no one else would show up. Yet I was greeted by applause and support when I got to the gallery space. I was completely overwhelmed with emotion, and I broke down in tears in front of everyone. The lesson that I learned, I understood that if I found something that I was passionate about and it lit a fire inside of me, I had to get it out of me. Now, the second book I went on to after that was called Glimpses, and Resonance was a very, very heavy-hitting book that went on. I sold out of that in the first month. I went on to go ahead and talk to many other people about body image and do public speaking, things like that as well, which went alongside of photography, and I started the movement out of that project. The second project I went into, as I mentioned, is called Glimpses. I started to actually teach in New York in about 2014. I was finishing up at University of Michigan. I decided to move across the country to go ahead and go to New York. I thought that was a place to be for photography. Well, little did I know when I went back to photography again and I went to New York, nobody was going to bang down my door and simply hire me. I had to go out there and get my hat tossed into the ring several times to go ahead and get it done. So I ended up applying to a job on Craigslist, which was my first teaching position. Long story short, as I began my teaching exposition on here, I decided to go ahead and publish my student work in a book because I thought I can't ask my students to actually make mistakes unless I actually show my mistakes as well to say that it's okay to make mistakes. A lot of people have this misnotion of the photography has to be perfect, whatever that means. And I'm here to tell you today there's no such thing as perfect photography. There's always what's in the mind's eye, and there's what you create out of it, and there's the experience of photography in actually the real world as well. And so as I was publishing this book on here, I was assigned by my professor to actually photograph 10 rolls of film in Italy. I went to Florence, Italy, and I was living and studying in Florence, Italy at the time. So it was straightforward to find things that inspired me, being it was all a very, very, very new experience for me. My professor told us to hone in on one thing for our project, in other words, to niche down. I've always personally struggled with niching down because there are so many things that I'm passionate about in life. And my mom always tells me that my mind drives 100 miles an hour every second of the day. Long story short, I ended up with a collection of street photography and adventures for my project. I had to decide on more than one thing. And for my final class presentation, I showed all 10 contact sheets as my last works instead of choosing a specific set of images for my collection. It was more about the journey and the destination in this sense than it was about the image. Years later, I decided in 2015 to publish the collection as a book called Glimpses. It was in my first year as a professor, and I thought I couldn't send my students out in the world again, as I say, without sharing my own work and the importance of mistakes that I had learned. I used this book as a teaching tool, and I sent countless students out in the world with the meaning and the importance of mistakes to learn to make their own work. And later on down the road, I want to go ahead and tell you about another project that I did called Kinetic. This is a very, very amazing project of mine. It's one that I'm most passionate about as well. And so on April 5th, 2016, I was photographing behind the scenes for my friend Jordan Matter on his Dancers After Dark project. We were in Times Square in New York City for photographing 3 nude dancers and shooting content for Shutterbug magazine. You can see the original story on my blog if you'd like as well. I remember specifically when the dancer jumped in the middle of the chaos at Times Square that Jordan froze the dancer perfectly every single time as they practiced. And at this moment, I wondered what the photograph would look like in motion instead of perfectly frozen. The rebellious nature in my soul told me on this night I had to do something different. It may be my curiosity, I may have had a new fire inside of me. I definitely felt the fire inside of me again, and I contacted dancers I met through shooting with Jordan to ask if they wanted to be a part of my new project called Kinetic. The experience reminded me of what my legendary friend Robert Frank once told me. He had the pleasure of studying under legend Henri Cartier-Bresson, who coined the term the decisive moment. Robert shared with me once that he printed 136 images and hung them on a gallery wall, calling it his decisive moment. And then if he did not care for a picture, he took a lighter and burned the negative on sight so that it would never be seen again. I was not the first to produce something that went against the grain of my mentor's teaching, clearly. And I ended up photographing dancers and releasing Kinetic on October 20th, 2017. It was my antithesis to what my mentor had actually taught me, and I felt alive. Now here's a couple other tips for finding the why in your photography. Other things that have helped me to discover the why in my photography over the years are, number one, free writing. Sometimes we must dump the thoughts in our mind onto paper or screen to organize them and understand them to find clarity and inspiration. Number two is adventures. Leaving the house and entering the world often to share new experiences and neuroplasticity and inspire us to pick up the camera and make something unique. Number three, chats with family, friends, and students. Sometimes simply hearing another person's insights on a specific topic can be the thing that sets off the light bulb above our heads. Number four, reading. Reading stories and things of interest can often lead the mind to connect the why in different fashions due to the understanding of the experience in another format. And number five, other creative mediums. As photographers, sometimes experiencing thoughts in other creative mediums such as writing, painting, drawing, sculpture, or other art forms can help us to surmise the why. What is the reason you photograph? Let's chat if you want to find the inspiration inside of you and understand further why you photograph. You can also book a complimentary 30-minute Zoom call with me, and I will listen to your story and help you inspire you on the why you photograph and give you some direction on there as well. You can book a call by jumping over to https://calendly.com/CNP call/30 minutes. It's the number 30 and then MIN. And then this week I want to answer some more of your questions as well. Let me just see what we got for questions this time around. Okay, number one on the list. How do I become the best photographer? That's a very general question. I would have to answer you on this to take your camera everywhere with you to photograph everything that moves, that doesn't move, and then some. That's how you're going to become the best photographers. You're going to go ahead and make images that you love. You're going to go out there and photograph everyone. You're going to share your pictures with them. And then one day, your skills will gradually improve. That's how you become the best photographer. Number two, how can I tell if a digital camera's lens is good quality? Well, generally I would research the lenses online. I would probably Google the lens before you decide to buy it. Read reviews, read what other people are doing to shoot with in a specific category, like if you're going to shoot landscapes versus portraits. I'd send you down two different paths for two very different lenses if you're going to do like landscapes or portraits, for example. And so I would do a little bit of reading online first and then go down that rabbit hole and ask yourself what you're going to be photographing as well. Generally, in general sense, on their 50mm lens is a good way to start. Number three on the list on here, let's see here. It says, how do I know if I have finished a roll of film? Well, generally you're going to have a counter on your film camera, and it's a 24 or 36 roll exposure for your film. And so generally if it reaches 24 and you can't move the little winding wheel any further, you finish the roll of film and you have to rewind it and take your film out of the camera. If it's 36 and it reaches the same point where you can't move the lever any further on there, then again you have to rewind the film, take the film out, and you're good to go. Next one on the list, how can I blur the background in a photo on my Mac computer? Well, you have to have some editing software. Something like Photoshop works great on there. You can get alternatives like GIMP is another one I would recommend as well. It's free. You can download that on your computer versus Photoshop. That's the way I'd go on that as well. Let's see here. Can my photographs get licensed in 500px if they are shot by a smartphone, but they have good artistic value? That is something I'd probably email the 500px folks directly about because I do not have any connection with them or any affiliation whatsoever, but I do appreciate the question on here. Next one, how can I clean my phone's lens without damaging it? Get yourself a cloth, it's a microfiber cloth, to clean your eyeglasses and to clean your cell phone at the same time on there. That's why I'd go on that. The last one on the list for today on here as well. How can I tell if someone is using filters on their photos? Well, number one, I would go ahead and take some photos with a similar camera and look at what an unfiltered photo looks like before you look at a filtered photo. A very, very good editor can actually make their photos look like it's not filtered, but I mean there's a lot of really bad filters out there too, to be honest with you. So again, as always, thank you for submitting the questions to me. If you want to go ahead and get your questions in for your photography questions, jump over to my website on charlienaebeck.com, and you can email me, and I'll go ahead and get them scheduled, and I'll let you know when to listen in for the answers. Otherwise, if you want to go ahead and book a call with me for that 30-minute call this week, I want to go ahead and get you on there so we can get you rolling with some photo coaching and get you some active steps on there to go ahead and up your game in photography. Again, you can jump over to https://calendly.com/CNP call/30 minutes. It's the number 30 and then MIN. And as always, thank you so much for joining me. You can go ahead and subscribe here on the podcast at Spotify. You can subscribe on Apple. You can subscribe on Amazon or anywhere that podcasts live. If you're a photographer, please follow the show. We do a couple episodes each week. And please tell all your photography friends as well to listen in for further tips, tricks, interviews, and things of that sort. I'll see you all in the next one. Have a great day.